Hey everyone, I haven't done a video in a really long time and I'm sure you can probably guess why. Yeah, that's right, I have my beautiful boy, baby boy, and we've called him Bodhi. He was born on the 2nd of May at 6:55 in the morning after a really long labour. But I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Basically, the end of the pregnancy started to become quite stressful, and people at the hospital that we were seeing were starting to get quite concerned about the birth. So we tried to be induced 2 weeks early, and that didn't work. He was not moving. He was really happy in there. So we decided to leave it then for a week, I think it was. And then after a week they wanted to induce me again, but I really didn't want to. I just didn't feel right about it, because I just wanted to wait until my due date at least, and just see if I could at least sort of go into labour naturally first, and then whatever needs to happen after that, we would, I was open to it. I just didn't like the early induction so much, and they wanted to do that with concerns about gestational diabetes and things like that, which I really didn't feel right about, because I feel like they were being just overly cautious, and that it just wasn't necessary really, because I don't know, throughout my pregnancy everyone's always told me that a mother knows her child best, or parents know their child best, and it's really true. Like I don't know, it just didn't feel right, the advice they were giving me and stuff, and sometimes that's just how it is, and I followed my gut, and luckily on my due date my waters broke. Up until this point my P.O.T.S have been really great. Towards the end of the pregnancy there was just a part, I think it was whenever there was the hormonal change in the pregnancy, that my P.O.T.S got worse, but other than that it was always completely my P.O.T.S was completely fine, and my blood pressure and my heart rate was always quite fast. Throughout my pregnancy it was, well, actually really fast. I think some people would be quite shocked, but it was always around 110, but I didn't feel it at all, and my blood pressure was always perfect, so that was amazing. Anyway, yeah, my waters broke on my due date, and contractions started 24 hours later, I think it was. And they were just not speeding up. They were really, really slow, so they were painful though. God, really painful, but they were always staying around 7 minutes between each contraction, and each contraction was lasting about a minute, and it was really painful. And I managed to cope with that for about 12 hours, I think, and oh my god, my P.O.T.S at that point, it couldn't cope anymore with the pain. It was just way too much. So the midwife came round to the house, and she was like, yeah, you need to go into hospital now, because the contractions were, quite strong at this point, and she could see I wasn't coping well. I was really, really faint. And then in hospital I tried to carry on for a bit longer, but not very long, didn't last very long, and they gave me an epidural, and I was about 4 centimetres at that point, dilated. And then, sorry, I got the telly on as well, it's distracting. And then I I had an epidural to help with the pain, because I'd really gotten to a point where I knew the next 3 contractions and it was, my P.O.T.S was just going to get beyond what I could cope with. So yeah, they could see as well I wasn't doing very well. So they gave me an epidural, and they were really happy. They actually offered it to me, and when they offered it, I was like, oh my god, really, I can have an epidural? So I jumped at it. And then as soon as I had that, about 10 minutes later, I felt so much better. And it didn't affect my blood pressure at all. It was completely fine. And I had a epidural where you have like a button, so you control how much you have, so you can keep topping it up whenever you feel you need to. So that was really good. But by the end of my labour, which was about another 12 hours, 24 hours, something like that, later, when I'd reached about 9 centimetres, I was pressing that button all the time because any twinge that I could feel, I just wanted to top up the epidural, because I knew I couldn't cope with any pain that my body might be experiencing at 9 centimetres dilation. So yeah, by that point my P.O.T.S was still really, really good as well, but otherwise the birth was starting to get quite complicated, because at this point it had been about 3 days since my waters broke, and obviously things start, people start to worry then about the risk of infection and things like that, so we had to kind of push it along a bit. I was also induced, actually, not long after I had the epidural, because my contractions were just, they weren't really happening. They were very irregular, and they would slow down, and then they would speed up, and then they would slow down. And when your waters break first, before having contractions, which is what happened with me, it's just a bit more of a panic to get the baby out because of this risk of infection and things. So, and because things weren't really progressing very well, it was very unstable, that's why they had to do a induction, which actually didn't do very much either. And then in the end, it had really been a long time, and I was coming up fully dilated, and I was 9 centimetres, and they could feel the baby's head was starting to swell, and just with the way things were, I won't go into too much detail, but with the way things were, they could pretty much guarantee that he would get stuck if I would try and push him out naturally, and that it was pretty much guaranteed I'd have extreme tearing. So we ended up with an emergency cesarean, which was an experience. I mean, I would do it every day now if it means having my beautiful boy, but it was not the nicest thing to experience, but at the same time it was manageable. You get through it. I wasn't traumatized by it or anything like that, so that's the main thing, and we were both healthy at the end of it. But it was a bit up and down for a while. During the cesarean, my blood pressure dropped really, really low, and I was just using every last bit of energy that I had, which was, trust me, next to nothing after a long labour like that, and everything my body had been through, and not having had any sleep, hardly eaten, and all sorts of drugs to sort of keep me going. By that point, experiencing the cesarean after all that, God, it was hard to stay conscious, so I was nearly fainting just constantly. I mean, every couple of seconds I was like shocking myself out of fainting, and it was hard work. And then my blood pressure dropped low, so they had to keep bringing that up. And then I lost loads of blood as well, and my anemic levels had gone down to 7, which was they tried to they tried to collect as much blood as they could and put it back into my body. So it was all quite an ordeal. I mean, Bodhi, our boy, was completely fine and healthy and beautiful and big. He was 9 pounds too. But he's just a long baby because he obviously takes after his dad, who's really tall, and I'm quite short, so he's definitely taken after his dad. But not chubby or anything like that, just a long, it's going to be a big guy, he's going to be really tall, and I'll end up really small old lady when I'm old, and he'll be my big son. It'll be really strange. Anyway, just completely going off track. So he was completely fine, and I was so blissed out when I saw him that I didn't even know what was happening anymore. I was just so in love with our boy. I lost loads of blood, which I didn't realise until a few days after I had the operation, and they told me my anemic levels had gone down to 7, so they wanted to do a blood transfusion. I really didn't want that. I wanted to see if we could try anything else first, because I don't know, I just don't feel comfortable with that being a first resort, especially, I don't know, it was just not for me. So I went on really strong iron tablets, and they have totally helped. The healing process was kind of up and down afterwards for a couple of weeks because of your body kind of going into shock and realising what it had just been through, and all the hormones and the tiredness, and just the recovery overall, and all the medication I was on and all sorts. So P.O.T.S wise, it was quite up and down for a while, but now he's 4.5 weeks, so it was 4.5 weeks ago that I had the operation, the cesarean, and that he was born, and I am doing so well, and it's unreal. I don't know how it's happening, because I'm not breastfeeding anymore, because of the anemia and everything. I just wasn't producing milk, so I had to stop. I had to just transfer him onto a bottle, and which he's done really fine. He's just happy as long as he's eating, and so, because a lot of people say that it's the breastfeeding that really helps with the P.O.T.S afterwards, but I haven't been breastfeeding, and I'm just doing so well, and I really think it's just that kind of like that mother instinct taking over. It just gets you through it. You just don't think about it anymore, about how you're feeling, really. You just think about the baby, and you're so happy and so tired that you just have to get on with it. So I've been doing really, really well, and that was quite an ordeal that I went through, and I'm just really happy every day. But I have to say, and this is really important because not everyone might have this, and so that I think would change everything that I'm saying, is that my partner is just incredibly hands-on and supportive. So he really, because we're bottle feeding, that really helps. So he can take over some of the night feeds, and he does a lot of them, and he just so that I can get some sleep. So I'd say every night I'm probably getting about 4 hours sleep, and I'm managing really, really well on that, which I never ever would have imagined. So it is incredible what your body can do. And look, I can bring my knees up again and things like that. I haven't got a huge ginormous tummy stopping me from doing everything. I did have a very big bump, and I've changed my hair. I don't know if it's the sort of thing that anyone would notice, but I've just tried to do little things to make me feel good again after being